Welcome! If you're a director of nursing and long-term care, you already know just how much is on your shoulders. But let's get real for a second. What do the federal regulations actually say your job is? That's exactly what we're breaking down today, your complete regulatory playbook. So what are those real responsibilities? I'm not talking about what's in your facility's job description. We're going straight to the source to find out what federal mandates truly require from you, from clinical oversight all the way to staffing. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with your core mandate, then define what clinical oversight really means, tackle that big staffing puzzle, cover the meetings you absolutely have to be in, clarify a super important rule about working the floor, and then wrap it all up with your leadership blueprint. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the absolute core of your job. This is the bedrock, the foundation of your role as a Don, according to the letter of the law.
So what's the big picture here? Well, the regulations basically say you're the full-time RN in charge of, well, pretty much the entire nursing department. It's not just about making sure care gets delivered. You're responsible for having enough good nurses, overseeing all the clinical care, handling the admin side, and even making sure the staff are properly trained and deployed. You're responsible for the whole shebang.
And you know they don't leave things fuzzy. When they say full-time, they mean it. The rulebook spells it out, clear as day, 40 or more hours a week. There's no gray area there. That's the baseline expectation for you as the RN leader.
Okay, moving on. Let's define clinical oversight. It's a phrase that gets thrown around all the time. But what does it actually look like in the real world, in your day-to-day practice? So what are you actually supposed to be doing? What actions really count as clinical oversight? It's way more than just walking the halls, that's for sure. The regulations give us a pretty solid list of what this entails. See, it's a very active, hands-on job. You're deep in the care plans, you're constantly monitoring your staff's performance, you're making sure your policies are up to date, and you're the leader who listens to staff concerns. It's all about building a system where your team can spot a change in a resident's condition and know exactly what to do. It's a huge responsibility. All right, let's get into the big one, the staffing puzzle. This is probably one of the toughest parts of your job, and what the regulations say about it, well, it's not just about hitting a certain number. We all want to know, right? What's that magic number? What's the perfect staff-to-resident ratio that guarantees you're safe and compliant? Well, you might be a little surprised by the official answer. And here's the thing, even the federal regulators admit there is no magic number. This quote basically says, hey, this is super complex, and trying to pick one right number for every single facility out there just isn't going to work. Every building is different, every resident population is different. So let's be super clear on this. Federal regulations do not give you a specific staff-to-resident ratio, period. Instead of giving you a number to meet, they give you a process that you have to follow. So what does sufficient nursing staff even mean then? According to the rules, it means having enough staff with the right skills and competencies to actually meet the needs of your specific residents. It all ties back to your assessments, their care plans, and the overall acuity in your building. And this is that process I was talking about. You have to conduct and document a facility-wide assessment. This is your homework. You look at your resident population, their acuity, their diagnoses, and then you determine the number of staff and the specific skills they need to have. This isn't just a good idea, it's the law. This is how you justify your staffing levels.
Okay, so your job isn't just on the floor. You're also a key player in the facility's overall governance, which means, you guessed it, required meetings and committees.
Let's talk about the QAA committee. Think of this as the quality control engine for your entire facility. Its job is to meet at least every quarter, find out what's not working, come up with a real plan to fix it, and then report all of that back to the top brass. And guess who has a reserved seat at that table? You do. Being on the QAA committee isn't optional for the DON. You are a required, non-negotiable member, right there with the medical director, the infection preventionist, and the administrator. You have to be there. Now for a really specific, really important rule that you absolutely need to know. It's all about when you can and, more importantly, when you can't work on the floor as a charge nurse. We've all been there, right? You're short-staffed, things are crazy, and you think to yourself, I just need to jump in and take a cart. But can you, legally? Well, the answer depends on a single number. And that number is 60. Just remember, 60. It's the magic number, the bright line in the sand drawn by the federal regulations. So here's how it works, and it's dead simple.
If your facility has an average daily census of 60 residents or fewer, then yes, you can serve as the charge nurse. But if you have more than 60 residents, the answer is a hard no. The rules basically say your main job of administration and oversight is too important to be put on the back burner in a larger facility.
All right, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's pull it all together and distill it down into your leadership blueprint, the absolute key takeaways to keep in your back pocket. Okay, here's your cheat sheet. 1. Your job is defined by federal rules, not just your boss. 2. You have to justify your staffing levels with a documented facility assessment. 3. You must be an active member of that quarterly QAA committee. 4. That 60-resident rule is a non-negotiable boundary. And 5. Clinical oversight is a real, hands-on process. If you nail these 5 things, you're not just building a compliant department, you're building a foundation for truly great care.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. How can you take all these rules and regulations, and instead of just seeing them as a checklist or a burden, use them as your playbook, a framework to really elevate the care in your facility? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Transforming your leadership to create the best possible outcomes for your residents.